a lot of times. Hi,
Hello,
this is Kim.
this is Andy.
We're going to read to you from the Urantia book,
But first, we have
365 Days of Walking the Red Road by Terry Jean.
and today we're going to be reading something that was written or said by Coyotle. You would know him by his name Geronimo, Apache medicine man and war chief. And today we're in remembrance of Mangus Coloradus, Apache chief who died on this date, 1863. So Geronimo says, I cannot think that we are useless, or God would not have created us.
Aha.
Mhm.
And what was this thing about Mangus?
He died today.
Oh, Mangus Coloradus. Let's look
He
at
was an
that.
Apache chief.
Yeah. And Geronimo lived from 1829 to 1909. The last 23 years of his life, he was a prisoner of war
In Florida.
in Florida. Mangus Coloradus, I didn't look this guy up. He was also an Apache chief. Okay. He lived from 1793 to 1863. Right. He was he was a member of the Apache tribe. Apache's homeland stretched from west from the Rio Grande to include most of what is present-day southwestern New Mexico. All right.
Mhm.
He died following a bullet wound to the chest. He lived like 6 months after he was injured.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
Kim was reading about him.
A little bit. Just Wikipedia. Right. Anyway. Interesting people, the Apaches. We're honoring them today. And thank you, Geronimo and Mangus Coloradus, for being here in your life and for sharing your gifts with us.
Mhm.
Okay, we honor them today. Okay. All right, so today we are reading from the Urantia book, The Courts of Nebadon. This is paper 33, Administration of the Local Universe, section 7. Okay.
The Courts of Nebadon. You want to start?
Okay. The master son, Michael, is supremely concerned with but three things: creation, sustenance, and ministry. He does not personally participate in the judicial work of the universe. Creators never sit in judgment on their creatures. Right? Because, if you're creating things, you're going to have your favorites and
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's like, how could I judge my sons?
Mhm.
How could I be in the jury of what my sons were convicted of some awful crime?
Mhm.
Creators never sit in judgment of their creatures. That is the exclusive function of creatures of high training and actual creature experience. The entire judicial mechanism of Nebadon is under the supervision of Gabriel. The high courts, located on Salvington, are occupied with problems of general universe import and with the appellate cases coming up from the system tribunals. There are 70 branches of these universe courts, and they function in 7 divisions of 10 sections each. Because there's a lot of these courts. In all matters of adjudication, there presides a dual magistracy consisting of one judge of perfection antecedents and one magistrate of ascendant experience. So I see they're always trying to balance here this perfection,
Mm-hmm.
people who are born perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a limited perspective. They also balance that with people who have had to ascend, and this they understand the struggles that it takes to overcome difficulty,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they understand this experience of ascending, which is somebody who's perfect. They don't necessarily understand that. Okay, all right, you go.
As regards jurisdiction, the local universe courts are limited in the following matters. The administration of the local universe is concerned with creation, evolution, maintenance, and ministry. Universe tribunals are therefore denied the right to pass upon those cases involving the question of eternal life and death. This has no reference to natural death as it obtains on Urantia. But if the question of the right to continued existence, life eternal, comes up for adjudication, it must be referred to the tribunals of Orvanton.
Mm-hmm.
And if decided adversely to the individual, all sentences of extinction are carried out upon the orders and through the agencies of the rulers of the supergovernment. The default or defection of any of the local universe sons of God which jeopardize their status and authority as sons is never adjudicated in the tribunals of a son. Such a misunderstanding would be immediately carried to the super universe courts.
Okay, so they're saying like what's not settled in the local universe. Okay, what warrants higher authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The question of the readmission of any constituent part of the local universe, such as a local system, to the fellowship of full spiritual status in the local creation subsequent to spiritual isolation, must be concurred in by the high assembly of the
Okay,
super universe.
so that applies definitely to us Urantians here. Mm-hmm.
In all the other matters, the courts of Selvington are final and supreme. There is no appeal and no escape from their decisions and decrees. However unfairly human contentions may sometimes appear to be adjudicated on Urantia, in the universe justice and divine equity do prevail. You are living in a well-ordered universe, and sooner or later you may depend upon being dealt with justly, even mercifully. Okay.
Yeah.
So these courts don't rule upon materialistic matters of environmental or geological
No,
occurrence.
no, or life and death things. Life and death, that's small to them. Yeah. Like Andy was talking about the volcano in Tonga that erupted and probably killed thousands, hundreds of thousands.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Killed a number of people from the tidal waves.
Yeah. But this, small beans to them, okay? Right?
Would not be a court issue.
Would not be a court issue. They're not interested in telling people what to do. Like our courts are, have to say when we have the laws about, you have to do this, you have to stop at the stop sign, you can't, steal, you can't do this. They're not interested in that. They're not interested in telling people you can or you can't do things.
Our courts are more concerned with the affairs here in Urantia, in terms of maintenance of good order and how to live.
What's fascinating to me is that they, a million people could die in like this, in that volcano in Indonesia, or that earthquake that didn't like a million people die when in like 2004 there was a huge
I don't know if it was that many, but
It was hundreds of
it's a
thousands.
lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. Okay, so that could go by and they don't blink. But if one person has sinned to the point where we don't know if we're gonna allow them to live anymore, that doesn't get decided in Nebadon. That's got to go straight to Orvanton.
You're talking about spiritually, not
Talking about spiritual
physically.
death instead of physical death. Yeah, for one person, they get the higher ups involved here, and we have to look at this very carefully. And so much goes into that decision whether we're going to extinguish this personality. Okay?
Mhm.
So you know where you're at. You know what's important here. They're showing you that.
Mhm. Mhm. But just for clarity, the courts of Nebadon are not, they don't take cases having to do with physical occurrences.
So it's just, yeah. Well, they might, well, as far as like, evolution, it says, what are they? They're interested in, are occupied with the problems of general universe import. Okay, what does this say?
Well, it creates the structure, but
Right.
it's not real clear on what the substance is.
Yeah. Or, yeah, things of life and death of people. But, if a creator needs some help or license to create certain things, is this going to be, this is a decimal planet here, so we need things like this, or which ones are we going to assign to be decimal planets, experimental planets, or things like that. Those are physical issues though too, right?
But they're not taking cases here on, for example, what's right and wrong.
No.
And
Nope.
what individual behaviors,
No.
how they need to be judged.
No, I don't know. It doesn't say that much about what kinds of cases they're going to take. They say more about what they're not going to take
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than what they're going to take.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But there's always one judge of perfection and one of magistrate of ascendant experience,
Mm-hmm. Well,
which
we
is
don't have anything like that in our earthly courts, our ancient courts.
no,
We just have one judge,
yeah,
and he's not really a judge. He keeps the structure functioning properly in the courtroom. Is really all he does.
right.
And
He's the referee, right? The umpire
right, yeah,
of
the court proceeding. And then after the court proceeding has reached a decision, he or she then passes sentence, which is the consequence of whatever it was that was before the court. Here, the courts of Nebadon don't seem to be concerned with consequences of their decisions, or are they?
Well, I think that's inherent in that. Yeah, I think they're concerned with consequences of their decisions.
What are their consequences? What would be the consequences
Well, the consequences,
if they can't rule on the extinguishment of a spiritual being?
it's in terms of growth of those individuals and communities, um, that if they see a group of people that need assistance, okay, some advocate from that place would request from the court in order to get some more spiritual guidance from this, so they might control like which how many spiritual advisors are sent to help this people. There's all kinds of people out there watching us and determining what our needs are. And the ends are not like life and death. That's too small. The issue is our spiritual growth. Okay, so what's going to help these people? What do they need in order to see their choices more clearly? The angels can't make our choices for us, but they can send us um, messages that help us understand those choices. Okay, especially leaders, community leaders, um, anybody that's entrusted with this. They have ways of working, but all of those workings have to be approved formally. You know, because there's no like renegade here. We're going to go against the system.
Is there not a fine line, though, between the functioning of Urantian courts and the functioning of the Courts of Nebadon in terms of sometimes a judge here on Urantia will pass a sentence that involves um, work that a person needs to do to correct their life.
Okay, but a judge here on Urantia has no way of really knowing, has very limited means of knowing. They can assign probation officers, whatever, or parole orders, but they don't know if that person is really engaging in that work. Okay, these guys, they actually do.
I mean, there's a difference here in Urantia between a sentence of, shall I say, harsh consequences for something that was done versus a sentence more merciful in terms of if this person would do thus and so, then perhaps they could get past their issues.
Yeah, and I think that does happen. That is true here. I mean, there are judges that, you know, that or laws that you can set goals like that. But it's like, how do they really know what that person is doing? So you've got to order to stay clean, and you got to go have your potty test every week or whatever it is. But you know, there's things people do to cheat that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of little things whereas these heavenly courts, they've got people to testify there who know exactly where you're at spiritually, mentally, physically. They know when you've been not bad or good, you know, like Santa Claus, right? So there's no possibility of deception. So there's then justice is more of a matter of course.
Justice for the person before the court, not for the victims.
Well, there's no, but here there's less of that consciousness of victim and perpetrator thing here. Yeah. So they'll take a look at both those parties, all right? And because yeah, there's very little sense of this, the retribution kind of aspect of courts here that we have today. Okay, so when we talk about justice for the victim, the best outcome for the victim universally is forgiveness. It's not punishment of that um, individual, even though there's some satisfaction in, like, we want to make them suffer like they made me suffer and things like that. Well, that's kind of a reciprocity. But here in these courts, that reciprocity is kind of taken for granted. It's kind of like all the parties involved know that there is reciprocity. There is. And it's a higher thing. It's not something we have the power to bring about ourselves. It's something that just exists in this higher level. And that's God's. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Unless a person chooses not to accept the reciprocity. In other words, if I do something spiritually despicable, whatever that might be, and then I choose not to feel remorse, then
Okay.
is there a consequence?
Well, then we have to say, okay, so this person's is so, if their soul is that rotten, can they be redeemed? Okay, so there is that, and
so,
then
but is that a case for the courts
that's a
of
case for the courts of Urantia,
Urantia as opposed to Nebadon?
right? So that gets passed to those higher levels.
So I'm still not real clear on what the courts of Nebadon do, what they adjudicate. And maybe adjudicate isn't even the right word.
Well, maybe they do procedural stuff, jurisdiction, who has authority over this, or what is the best use of these. We've got 10,000 here beings of this order that um, need a job, an assignment, so we're going to assign those. Okay, so just the same way as the courts assign a guardian ad litem to, they'll assign jobs for I think, I guess, I don't know 100%, but um, well, there's the courts of Nebadon. There's the lower courts too, and they all have their own um, jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I can see a reflection here in Urantia. You have state issues and federal issues,
Sure.
and you got to put them in the right court.
Yeah, but yeah, it is hard. It's hard to know because the concept of justice of what they're doing is a lot different. Or we see this crisis coming up. So on this planet here of the asteroid going to hit, are we going to help them deflect that asteroid, or are we going to just let that carry out naturally and just let the you know
That's a physical, a secular.
well, when it has to do with the whole planet, but you there's certain levels where that would be extinguish of a whole planet.
Mhm.
So there's probably some special considerations involved there. Um, Again, we're operating in time space is different for these guys. They can do more. They have more, um, a larger window to work in when it comes to time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, we seem to be stuck in Chronos time here on
right.
Urantia.
Chronos time.
We struggle to get out of Chronos time. So maybe they're just dealing entirely with Kairos.
No,
events.
not entirely. I don't think entirely. I think that there's an interface where they kind of work. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, that's my question. The interfaces, the fine lines, the on this side or on that side. Where's
You want to be in chrono or kairos time, where everything's perfect, everything is just the now, everything is right here. But if you want to get something done, if you want to make a change, then you got to launch yourself into chronos time, right?
Mhm.
So
That's where things happen in Chronos.
right. So one person is praying here to like make a change in their life. Okay, so that's going to be answered by making sure. So the angels are going to make sure that that person has the tools available to them. You can't do anything for them, but they have to have whatever they need available to them, and they have to have faith enough to use them, confidence to use them,
Mhm.
to use those tools. So they make sure that everything is running smoothly and that people have choices. They pay attention to things that are in crisis, but they're always looking at things not in a matter of retribution. That's hard a concept to divorce yourself from if you're used to dealing with courts in our world here. In the physical world, they're just not concerned with those things. They're concerned with opportunities for development of spiritual growth and development of individuals, and they're interested in the orderly proceedings of making everything go according to the will of God. Okay, so we can't go and make huge exceptions for this guy over here just because he's whatever, you can't do that. So you have to make sure that everything is fair that way, equitable. Okay, that everybody's got the same chances to to know God and to emerge into perfection. Right. So everybody has the same opportunity. So that's level, but that's tricky. You get some people here that are making decisions, some leaders that a huge crisis, impending crisis, looms upon the making of that decision. So that's decision that leader has to make, whether to go to war or not. Okay, but you can find ways. These angels find ways to show these leaders what the consequences of that decision might be. So they have to, um, so they can assign more guidance to people in those situations. I feel, right, when there's more consequences riding on your choice.
So they're working on a spiritual level, not a
They're working totally on a spiritual level,
physical or material level.
right?
Okay.
Right.
Let's leave it with that because we need to go.
We need to get going. Yeah.
Pick up Calvin for the readers.
For the readers group. Yeah. Yeah. And I wouldn't say they're never concerned with physical stuff. I would say that in the range of within human choice, they're not interested in. I mean, they're unable to make our choices for us. Whether our courts here, don't hesitate to do that. They're making choice. No, you may not have an abortion. Yes, you know what I mean. Or you have to have the invasive ultrasound, whatever. If things like this here before you have an abortion, whatever. They're not concerned with that the way our courts are. They're concerned with smooth functioning, making sure that we have these choices and appreciate these choices. Right.
So we confuse ourselves when we see the word courts because our familiarity is here on Urantia, and the Urantian courts function on a very different level.
Very different level. Well, see, because they are telling us what to do. They are telling us exactly what we need to do. These courts aren't. They're not going to tell us what to do. They're going to make sure that we have opportunities. They're going to make sure that we understand our choices. They're going to make sure that we are adequately supported. That we have the more consequences that as you grow spiritually, more consequences are attendant upon your choices, like who to listen to, who not to listen to, all these things. So they come, and we need more support then. So they come. See, so when such and such person here is graduated to, or they're having more insight here. So we have to make sure that they know that they're important in this way without getting egotistical. That's another line, but it's always, walking this line they do with us, it's really, I think it's an amazing, beautiful process of growth that they're interested in. So justice isn't this thing that just boom, there's the justice here. That person gets the electric chair and you get to go free, and everybody is who knew the victim of the crime, they get to be satisfied. Well, that's very limited.
Mm-hmm.
That's really very limited.
Right.
Okay. So we have to think about justice more expansively as kind of like a universal process.
I guess it's where it's not clear to me is the intersection between Urantian court cases and Nebadon court cases. Is there a connection?
Besides that, those rules are carried out and they have ultimate authority. No.
Okay.
And
Well, that's clear.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're concerned about completely different things.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Our courts are concerned with how we behave.
Right. Urantian behavior.
Anyway, we got to go.
Yep. We
All
gotta
right.
go.
Love you guys.
See you another time.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
That was a good discussion. Well, see, that is hard.